You're listening to the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast, the show that proves no one stumbles upon success ever. With your host, Lou Need. Every Mondays and Thursdays, we deliver cold hard evidence behind the power of a robust morning routine. Get ready to be transformed by the renewal of your mind.
Hello, morning enthusiasts. Welcome to the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast. I am your host, Looney Lewis, and today it is my pleasure to introduce a very special guest to our show, Becca. She is the author of the Clarity Journal and has been a coach for over a decade. She's on a mission to help people break out of the cycle of uncertainty and struggle that hold them back. Boy, is that more true. So I'm looking forward to talking to her because she helps women going back and forth with the big, seamless, endless question of what to do next, where to go in life, so they can stop going around in circle and finally figure out what they truly want to create and create the clarity or momentum that they crave. And it's sounding like it's about finding your purpose and being able to live in that purpose and kind of just stop that mental stuckness. And so I'm excited to have Becca on the show. So with no further ado, Becca, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
It's an honor. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. And I know you are the creator of Clarity Journal, and I want to hear all about that. But before we dive into that, tell us a little bit about your journey here so far.
That's such a great question. I started coaching over a decade ago, and I really got into it because I was going through my own questioning what I wanted to do with my life. And as I was doing my own reading and my own diving into trying to decide what I wanted to do, I started helping all of my friends. A lot of my friends were at the same stage. I was, in my mid-20s, and I realized I was really good at it. I was helping them move on to their next job, move on to getting back to what they wanted to do. Because, when you're in your 20s, you think you knew, you went to school, you graduated school, and you kind of feel like you know everything. And then you get into the workforce and you realize what you thought you wanted, not necessarily what you wanted, or it's a lot harder to get what you wanted than you thought it would be. Mm-hmm. And so as I was helping all of my friends go back and forth about what they wanted to do and helping them get jobs that they loved, I realized I really love coaching and I love helping people figure out what they want. Mm-hmm. We've all had that experience as a child of adults around us complaining about their jobs and how they hate working. Yeah. And I think that really stuck with me more than most people. I have this very vivid memory of being in my grandfather's car when he was probably about 65. And I was probably, I don't know, maybe 10. And him just going on and on about not liking his job. And I remember asking him, well, why don't you get a new job? And him being totally you can't get a new job. This is what I do. This is what I've been doing for 60 years, whatever, however long he'd been working for, 40 years. And this is what happens. You become an adult and you hate your job.
Yeah.
And I always hated that. I always hated listening to the adults in my life complaining about their jobs. And I think that moving forward, once I became an adult, it just was kind of almost natural to want to make sure as many people as possible loved what they do, because it's so hard to wake up in the morning if you're waking up to go spend 8 to 10 hours at a place that you don't like.
Yeah, that's over 80% of our lifetime is spent at work, and work should be fulfilling. I totally agree with you. It should be fulfilling. And when we hear our parents, feel stuck, because it was a different industry, it was a different era where you have to work 40 hours. Nowadays, us millennials or baby boomers or Gen Y, Gen X, Gen Z, wherever we are now, it's different. It has changed. The era has changed. And so there's a need to find that clarity. There's a need to actually live into that purpose and find out, what are the talents and gifts that I have that I can use to help, to add value and help other people, or even and be innovative. Right. So it's pretty cool that you put that on, because it stays with us when we hear our parents say that. It's traumatic almost, to feel so bondage, to feel so stuck.
I know. And I see my friends doing it with their kids. they're complaining about their day-to-day life a lot. And I don't even think people recognize when they're doing it, but I feel like it's like this big warning sign, like, hey, if I'm spending half my time complaining about what I'm doing, it's probably time to do something else.
Yeah. What are the effects that you find it has on people physically and emotionally who are stuck in a rut in a job that they don't like? How does it affect us body? Because it actually transcends in other areas of life.
It really does. I think that, there's always the physical aspect. Like, even if you don't believe that it's physically hurting your body, you end up eating not as well. You end up not working out as well. You don't have as much energy. But I think depending on how bad it is, if your body is constantly flooded with cortisol and you just want to flee, like if you feel that feeling of, I need to get out, that's your body producing cortisol and adrenaline, and it's really not very good for it. And then I think the thing that I see the most and I hear the most when I'm talking to people is that it affects all of their relationships. That you're going to a place that you hate, and then you come home, and even if you love your kids and you love your spouse, you're just going to snap at them. They're going to do something stupid and you're going to snap so much quicker because the stress of the day has built up and up and up. You also probably don't maintain your relationships as well as you should, like your friends, because you don't have the energy for it. So it really does just reach out and affect every aspect of your life. If you have creative projects that you would want to be working on, you probably don't have the energy for that. It's really sad how it can affect so much of your life, because you're right. It's 80% of your life to begin with. And then you bring it forward and it's even more of your life. The other 20% gets infected with it.
Yeah, it gets consumed. It's really scary how that affects. And the stress level, you were talking about the cortisol. If you're pumping all the cortisol in your body, adrenal fatigue is developed where you're craving and giving into alcohol, right? To either numb the pain or to feel some type of alive in any way possible. And then you develop a new habit that is not healthy. And I agree. And then I know some studies that says, it can give you ulcers, right? Because we're talking about chronic stress here.
Right.
Okay. We're not just, because it's mental. We're not just talking about, it's the job, I leave it at work. You don't. You take it with you. You take it in the house. And I definitely can see the correlation and how you can come home super tired and snap, or don't have time for the kids, or to have dinner and don't have to attend to them, because with the family life, you got to be mentally there.
It's really hard to do it half-assed.
Yeah. Because you think about it, we're just building that same cycle, right? We got to break the curse sooner or later. And if you're half-assing of the parenthood and raising kids, they're going to learn from you.
Right.
And they're going to repeat it, right? So again, we go back to that subconscious learned behaviors.
Well, and also if we're that stressed out, we risk raising people pleasers. We risk raising little kids who desperately want to help you maintain your own stress. So they're constantly trying to make you happy. And when you think about it, that just creates this cycle, because then they'll end up staying in jobs they don't like and trying to please people that they shouldn't please. And I think that we all as parents are fairly conscious of wanting our kids to be strong and to be able to have a voice. If you're making it hard for them, I know this isn't a parenting podcast, but it's funny how it just it affects everything, and it affects the people around you.
Yeah. And I totally agree with that. So now that we dived into what the problem is, tell us how, when, somebody comes to you with that issue, how you start helping them envelope their clarity, their confidence, their identity, and their purpose.
I think you actually kind of hit on it. A lot of it's confidence. If you've been stuck and you've been indecisive for a really long time, your confidence has taken a bit of a beating. We don't usually like jobs if they're making us, we don't usually dislike jobs if they're making us feel confident. Usually the jobs we dislike are the ones that are somehow affecting how we look at ourselves. So one of the first things that I really listen for are my clients' strengths. I really believe that we all have these strengths in us that are really core strengths that we don't usually recognize ourselves because they come so easily to us that because they come easily, we don't feel like they have value. They are just something that everyone can do. They are something that you don't spend a lot of time thinking about because you're not having to practice it. And so being able to pick up on those strengths and use those to help inform what the person should be doing next and really mirror them back to the person, I feel like that's really valuable and powerful. I think that when my clients have aha moments, half the time, it's really where I've said, hey, you're saying this, but you're not really seeing the strength that you have behind it that's showing up here. And they're usually dumbfounded, like, oh, I haven't even really thought of that as a strength.
Mm-hmm.
I just think of that as something everyone does. And it's no, it's not. Everyone has their own strengths. And I think that sometimes if you're also stressed, then that leads you into not valuing the strengths of your coworkers. Like your coworker doesn't have your strengths. Your coworker has their own. And sometimes that becomes feeds into a negative cycle. So I work a lot with people on figuring out what their strengths are. And then also we work a lot on decision because most of the time someone will come to me and I'll get this long email about how they don't know what they want to do. And it will be very poignant and very thoughtful. But as soon as I start talking to them, it's really apparent that they actually do have a good sense of what they want to do. Problem is more about deciding between 2 or 3 things. Sometimes they want to just ditch it all and go open a restaurant. But a lot of times it's really that they have 2 or 3 career paths that they're trying to decide between, and they don't know which one is right. And because they spend so much time telling themselves they don't know, that they aren't really exploring the options in a mindful way, like where they're going and talking to people and really getting the outside information and feedback that they need.
Yeah. And then that's where you come in with the clarity and being able to actually, they know the end, they have it innate, they have it in store, they have it inside, but don't know how to put it in a straight linear line to actually get to the end of it. So tell us a bit more about how the Clarity Journal plays a role in that.
Well, the Clarity Journal I came up with when I was trying to change my business a little bit. And I was talking with a friend and I kept going back and forth between 2 options. And my friend stopped me and she said, Becca, you're a coach. What would you tell yourself? So I took a step back. You know, we all need those friends who will truth to power. And I took a step back and I really started writing down everything that I asked my clients. And as I was doing that, I realized how powerful it was just having these questions. It is really valuable also to have a coach who can help you sift through the information, but just having the questions in and of themselves helped me get so much clearer. And so as I was frantically journaling and like writing down more questions and like really loving the process and realizing how strong it was, I was like, this has to be a book. So that is how the Clarity Journal came into being.
That's cool. Yeah, no, I agree. When we have those people in our life that actually set us straight.
Right. We all need them.
Yeah.
Don't always appreciate them at the time, though.
Yeah. But iron sharpens iron, right? They help us be better and vice versa.
Exactly.
I want to talk to you about the transition. I'm sure you have people that come to you that are in a 9-to-5 and that are considering entrepreneurship. What do you tell them for that transition? Because it is a scary road.
It is a scary road. I think we make it scarier than it needs to be sometimes. I think that most of my clients do really well at work. I have, say 90% of my clients, if you ask them, does your boss like you? Their first response would be like, my boss loves me. I do all of this. Like I get along well with them. I don't like them, but they are, or I don't like them, or I don't like the job, but I am doing a good job at work and they do value me. And I think that when that is true, we don't realize that we actually have power there. So oftentimes people think about starting their own business is very binary. And sometimes it is. If you're going to start a restaurant, if you're going to start a yoga studio, you're going to need to be there 15 hours a day. Yeah. But if you're just going off and becoming a freelancer, if you're doing your own consulting gig, you really actually have the space to start small and build. And I find that oftentimes employers are really perfectly happy to let someone drop down to 30 hours a week and negotiate how the work week is going to look, because they don't want to lose them, or they don't want to lose them soon. Like if they lost you in 6 months, they'd actually have time to train someone, get someone on speed. The team could kind of move on forward smoother. And it's so funny to me how many people dismiss that. We start talking about someone wanting to build a creative enterprise or whatnot, and they don't have enough savings to just wholesale quit. You know, if you can move down to 30 hours a week, a lot of people can do that. A lot of people, if they're bringing in a couple coaching clients or a couple consulting clients or freelance writing clients, they really can afford to, you know, cut off 5 hours of the day and then maybe make that 10 hours of the day. Or not 10 hours a day, 10 hours a week.
Oh, yeah. Start as a side hustle.
As a side hustle, but also recognize that your side hustle doesn't actually have to be as stressful. A lot of times when people talk about side hustle, they're talking about working full time, and that's hard. But there are also full-time jobs, even there are also part-time jobs, even in the professional world. So I would say if someone really wants to start their own thing, you shouldn't quit before you have money. You need to have your money saved away. So however that needs to happen is, if you don't have a trust fund that you can fall back on, I think that is the single biggest stressor. And as soon as someone quits when they didn't have enough money in the bank, it leads to more negative feelings than they thought it would. And then it makes it even harder to get the lift they need.
Unnecessary stress.
Unnecessary stress. The name of the game is avoiding that unnecessary stress, because it's just so hard to overcome it. You end up procrastinating more. And so I would say that really taking stock of your situation, but taking stock of it looking for solutions, looking for things outside of yourself that might actually be an answer, because it's too easy to tell yourself, oh, I can't do it. Not going to work. My boss is going to say no, can't do it. And cutting yourself short.
The comfort zone.
It's your comfort zone. Yeah. Exactly. It is your comfort zone. And it's really important to like what you're doing. And entrepreneurship is not easy, you know? And so I think a lot of people say that you need to have a year in the bank before you go out on your own. And that seems like a lot of money, but especially if clients paying you on the back, like after you do the work, it's really not, because you might not get paid for the work you do today for 3 months.
Right. What kind of mindset would you say? Because you have to be mentally strong. You have to, and there's tenacity. And I think most important is belief in yourself, that confidence that you can do it. You can see it through. How important is that?
I mean, it's vital, because if you don't have it, you don't put forth the energy that you need for achieving something really great. So, but I will say that only probably about a third of my clients decide that they're going to just chuck it all and go start their own business. I have a lot of clients who grew up with entrepreneurs and know that they don't want to deal with the stress of it. Yeah. So I think they're really taking the entrepreneur mindset, even if you're going to have a job, and really recognize that you should love your job, that your job should fulfill you at least 70% of the time. We're all going to have little things we don't like about our jobs. We're all going to have little things we don't want to do in our jobs, but 70% of it should be fulfilling. And if it's not, but it's time for a change, because the thing that is the hardest for me is when I get someone who's 62 and doesn't know what they want to do next, knows they're not going to be retiring in 3 years, and really has gotten themselves deeper and deeper into a path that they don't even really like. And they're so depressed by the time they get to me. when they're 62 and they feel so much like their options are all closed up because they don't want to go back to school for obvious reasons. They don't want to start slightly below where they are now. They have so many things that they need to check off, so many boxes they need to check off, but they really haven't given themselves the space to focus on them and focus on what makes them happy. And that is way easier to do in your 20s, 30s, 40s.
Yeah.
So
how do you begin to do that? So I know morning routine plays a big role into it. So let's talk about more how the importance of morning routine, and yours in particular. How do you get up, dress up, and show up so that you can be ready to serve the clients you do?
Yeah, I start with journaling. I obviously have a preference for journaling. Before I get out of bed, I sit down and I try to journal for 3 pages because I read in The Artist Way. If you've ever read The Artist Way, I agreed with her on a lot of things and I disagreed with her on a lot of things. It's a fairly woo-woo book, so I usually preface that for people in case that's not their cup of tea. But the whole book is about creative flow. And one of her biggest things in that book is to journal for 3 pages a day, because it really helps you get back in touch with yourself. If you only journal for a page, if you're only writing a paragraph or 2, a lot of times you're not going very deeply and you might be lying to yourself. Kidding yourself. I don't want to say it too harshly, but the further you allow yourself to go in it, the more you'll see your patterns. And I think for me, I am a big believer in mindfulness and not just sitting cross-legged and meditating, but being mindful about where I am, how I'm showing up as myself and what is affecting me. We talked at the very beginning about how stress affects relationships because we end up getting mad about things we're not really mad about. We're mad about something different. So being able to really become more mindful about your thoughts and feelings. And so I love journaling for that. And I know that most people won't be able to do 3 pages a day, but I think that even if you're only doing a page a day, that's great. But only if you can really take it in that mindful spirit of being aware of where you are right now.
Yeah. Journaling is a form of meditation within itself.
It is. It's definitely a mindfulness practice in and of itself.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. And that's one way people can find their purpose is quieting down the mind, spending time with themselves and actually assessing and analyzing, as you say, where they are, but also spending time to get to know yourself. So, what is it that you truly want? Because a lot of time we say we want happiness, but in essence, that just means I don't want to struggle. Right. I don't want this pain I'm feeling. And that's not enough, right?
It's not, because there's starting friction to everything. So if you're really focused on just not feeling discomfort, well, anything worthwhile doing, there's going to be discomfort at the beginning. And so if you're focused on avoiding the discomfort, then you're also going to end up focusing on avoiding your purpose.
The good things. Yeah. It's almost like saying, I want to get fit, but I don't want to work out because I don't want to be sore and I don't want to be tired. I don't want to be exhausted. Exactly. So you're alleviating the pain, but you're also alleviating the results. So that alone, just, I want to be happy to alleviate suffering and pain is not enough, because even if you are in the 9-to-5, the entrepreneurship, solo entrepreneur, I mean, it's inevitable and it's part of growth, right? Failing and crashing hard and having to bounce back. It's all part of the process. So.
Well, I love how you said that. But you're alleviating the pain, but you're also alleviating the results. That is just absolutely the perfect way to say it.
Yeah. Tell us, Becca, how can we connect with you? Where can we find you?
You can find me on Amazon. The Clarity Journal is there. You can find me also at beccaribbing.com, and that's my website. So Ribbing is RIBBING.
Excellent. Yeah, that's perfect. I really enjoyed talking to you about just art of journaling and how you do it first thing in the morning, how you get up and jot your thoughts down. And it doesn't have to be structured in any way too. Free flowing, free writing is also getting emotions off your chest, out of your head into paper. And for some people, I find that if they rip it up, they burn it. That's an act of letting it go.
I do that sometimes. I love burning the page. Okay, it's gone.
Yeah. And then it's a ritual that you let it go. It's no longer part of your system. You're no longer thinking about it, and it's no longer affecting you. I think that's the biggest part, is how it affects you.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, it's been an honor and a pleasure talking to you today, Becca. I thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Excellent.
All right, morning enthusiasts, that's it for today's show. Thank you for tuning in. If you love the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast, we'd love to hear from you. So go ahead and subscribe, rate, and give a review on iTunes or Google Play. While you're at it, tell a friend about the show. Be sure to visit bestmorningroutineever.com and our Facebook group to join the conversation, access the show notes, and discover our fantastic free bonus content. Until next time,